Hello, this is the final video in the video tutorial series about the repeated surveillance budgeting tool. It doesn't mean that we will not produce more videos, but the further production of video tutorials or videos on this topic will be driven by your questions and comments. This tab, scenario building, is probably the last tab, the budgeting tool, which has quite complex structure, even more complex than planning tab. And we try to explain it in detail in the tutorial, in the user guide, but seems we think there is some more to show here. So if you remember, this tab is divided into two bands. The upper band is for the projects which are not registered for year one. So you see there is a space, there is a box, and you can enter several projects like 1, 2, 3 entered here, and it will show what does it mean. While the band below pulls all projects from the this tab, external one, and you can see. So if we go to the external one, you will see this activity there, and it takes this line items here and presents to use it for further scenario building. Again, just to remind, the scenario building in this version of the methodology and the tool is confined to external projections because to build different other two-type scenarios described in the methodology, the tool, more advanced tools are needed for that. External projections are not computed, they are registered, and therefore this scenario building is identical to the composing the content of the projects, because you just enter the numbers you got from your partners, and you don't do computation on their behalf. So let's go back here, and what we see, so there are two bands, and then we see one. So this is one band. Let me make it a little bit bolder. So this is one, this is second, third, and fourth bands here. And in the first, we have new projects here, and we have old projects here, and then we have these three bands, one corresponding to the basic scenario, another to optimistic, another one to pessimistic one. The sequence of entering values is like this. We start from here, that's the one block, then we can go the third, fourth, and then when we're finished with the lower one, we go up and we first enter values projects here. If we have something to plan, then here, then here, then here. And this numbering is the same in the user guide. So I will take away these numbers and describe what we do here. I think it's time us to switch to entering mode. So if you in the below, I mean in the lower band, the tool displays year one projections because we already entered in the projects tab, and it gives us in baseline scenario opportunity to define what we expect realistically, what we know will be sustained or stalled, because this is a type of scenario which is not determined by our mood, optimistic or pessimistic. It's more or less reflect the information knowledge we have at the moment of projection, and it's backed up with some communication formalities. So Usually we see the numbers which are underpinned by something. So if you ask where the numbers come from, the user should share some reference document, right? Now, we have two ways to build scenarios. So one way is that we just take these numbers here, and using the method of passing values, so pass special, we can move them here, and we can do the same here. We can then do this, so take the other ones, and also move, to take this and pass them here. So it says that other than this activity, this project, we expect the same level of funding in other years. So if there is a difference in the totals which is placed here, this is just because we expect the funding to increase from 612 to 30,000 and then a little bit reduced, but still remain high, 20,000 in year 3. But as you can see, the numbers here are repetitive, so we have to repeat every time, and maybe it's difficult to see visually if there are some differences between these and that. So one way not to avoid entering all this repeating the previous year numbers is to use the tools function which minimize the inputs. And if you go to the settings and tell the tool use previous year projections by default, and you put it to yes, look what happens. So although this row is empty, a column is empty, it calculates the budget here, you see, and it counts this and this, which is 90, right, solvent. So it increased the budget by 90,000 and then deduct this 612. So there's no need to enter anything. The budget is propagated, let's say, from year 1 to year 2 and then year 2, year 3. How the tool does it? There's a simple principle. If the tool finds that any cell here is empty, it takes the values from the previous year. So if we delete this 30,000, 20,000, the budget here will reduce correspondingly by 30,000. So if I return back, you see it goes up by 30,000, but it goes down then to 1,179,000, which is 30,000 less than the previous one. This, how helpful it is means that, first of all, it tells that in basic scenario we don't expect any changes other than this, so it's easy to detect what will be changed. And the only question which can come from the users is that, okay, if we think that the 12,000, or let's say 3,800, we expect the same funding year 2, but we know for sure that this project closed in year 3. What we do? How to make the tool not to calculate it here? And if we want to do so, we just need to tell the tool that this cell is not empty, and we should fill it with by 0. And when we put 0, you see the original number reduced to 891. Again, if it's empty, it's 1,000,000, almost 200,000. If we end 0, it becomes less by 308,000. So this, if you see this, it tells me that, okay, everything is constant. We expect just in the baseline scenario increasing funding in the year 2, and the year 3 also remains high compared to the year 1, but less little bit than the year 2. And this project, which was bringing 308,000 in year 1 and presumably year 2, ends, and there will be zero funding from this project in year 3. So that's the way, without too much data entry copying, using this option here, don't use previous year values, you can make it more informative, the way I understand, because you will get rid of repetitive data and it's easy to visualize. So Now, what happens in optimistic scenario now? In optimistic scenario, it says that it takes, first of all, it borrows, let's say, values from the left, from here. So if I delete this, then this value becomes identical to that value, because it took everything as it was in year one in base scenario. But this 20,000 increases it definitely the total by corresponding amount. So the optimistic scenario, the way it looks now, it says year one, everything is the same for the registered projects. Okay, let's not comment on this one because we will come to that later. But in year two, we expected a bit more increase. If it was 30,000 in the basic, in optimistic one, I expect it will increase about to 35,000, and the reduction in year 3 will be not to 20 but 25. So if you compare these two, this one and this one, in optimistic, our optimism is 5,000 more than the base scenario in year 3. In registered part, again, we talk about this part only. So same in pessimistic one. The year one values are borrowed and they are identical. You see here is a let's reduce the size so you can see. Okay, see, it's same. And then we have more modest increase in year one of the same, this World Bank or GPA project, and then we have 0. So no support anymore in year 3. That's the pessimistic one, the worst case scenario. Okay, now let's go up and first have the question: why we need this box? I mean, why it's needed? It's needed because when our horizon moves from 1 year to year 3, we may realize that we are aware that some projects will be funded in year 2 or year 3. So nothing happens in year 1, therefore we don't register them in the project tab, but we anticipate them to enter the landscape in year 2 or year 3. Therefore, we enter them by selecting values here, so in the same type, like drop-down list and activities, and then we need manually to enter data. So this rule of okay, and then to enter data. Now it's interesting is that when we enter data here in 50,000, so every time you add a new row here, these cells become visible. So tool kind of invites you, please comment that here there are no, you see there are no cells, but now it means that this project is registered. This is one detail. So you see, if I delete, this becomes cells disappear, and this will be then actually ignored. But now look again. If this is 50,000, the rule of using previous year applies to the upper part as well. So if I delete it, you see the value change not only here but here. It's in both places. We lost 50,000. So again, if I want to show that in a better scenario, this is just 1 year project, one time we will get 50,000, we need to put 0 here, and then this project disappears in the next year. Otherwise, it will be 891, right? So same principle, no difference. The only thing is that we don't have the year 1, because if we knew this project was happening year 1, it should have been registered and it should have been visible in the lower band, not here, right? But we may have optimistic expectations saying that we were not sure, but therefore we did not budget it, or we did not project this, we didn't register, has not registered this project in year 1. But if we are in an optimistic mood, we may consider a 20,000 coming even year 1. So in optimistic or pessimistic scenarios, we may have mostly in optimistic one, I think it's make logical, because in pessimistic one, if it's not in the basic, why it should be here. But in the optimistic one, we can say, well, we still hope that if not into year 2, but it will come in year 1. So let's say in pessimistic one, we can say it comes in 2020. Okay, let's say in pessimistic logically, it comes in year 2, this 20,000. But here we believe it will be this much and this will be this much. Okay, so it increases every year. But in pessimistic, we may say the best case scenario, it presumably comes in year 3 and with 50,000. Okay, so that's the way we can compose all 3 scenarios, or we can ignore the pessimistic scenario and use only 2 scenarios. It's up to us. There is no difference. What else we should know about this instrument? So if, for instance, let's say World Bank, rotavirus, and case detection, medical examination. So if I change this from active case detection to medical examination, you see we get the red line, which means that this budget, the project line item duplicates something already somewhere, in either here in registered band or in the upper band, which tell us that please check it, because if the project is already here, you can I mean if it is this one, so instead of entering the values there, enter these values here, right? So you don't need, right, to duplicate it there, so you have to enter these values here. But this actually prevents this confusion with double entry of different projects. It's not a mistake, I can say. The tool can handle it, but I think it makes the picture projection ScenarioBuilding less credible. So for the credibility sake, please avoid duplications. The tool helps you. It shows these duplications in red. So we can revert it to active case finding, and then in this case it's a different project. That's the way to produce projects. I think there is another parameter here. So no, for the ScenarioBuilding, that was the only one parameter we're changing in the settings. We think that it's better to keep by default using the previous year funding, because it makes ScenarioBuilding lighter. The redundant, repetitive information is not distracting us on the screen, and we have everything in front of us to understand what the dynamic of external funding landscape year by year by all 3 scenarios. Thank you for watching this video. You are welcome to provide your comments, questions, and we will try to respond to them in written, or maybe produce another video with all illustrating answers to interesting questions. Goodbye.